The next thing that I want to talk about that bothers me is football alarmism. It takes many forms, but the primary ones are nappy shitting, which people love to do, and also this obsession with the transfer market, which I think is also hugely linked to football alarmism. But anyway, let's start with the nappy shitting. Essentially, what I mean by nappy shitting is when something bad happens. It could be a very small minor thing, it could be a large thing, and everybody just blows it way out of proportion. And they just think, oh, this is the worst thing to ever happen. And I get the feeling that as a species, we just sort of wait for bad things to happen. And this extends also to football fans. Now, we're just waiting for something bad to happen, and we're more vocal about something bad happening than something good happening. You can see this on Twitter. Many people were complaining about Mason Mount, and oh, he's not good enough, and oh, he's only playing because he's Frank's son, which is frankly ludicrous, and I'll get to that later. But they were constantly talking about that, and then as soon as he scored, quite a difficult technique to be honest, as soon as he scored a difficult goal, then everybody just suddenly became quiet. Not obviously the people who were bitching about him, who were complaining, oh, Mason Mount doesn't get into the team on merit, he gets in because he's Frank's son, or whatever it is that the criticism is going to be. They're obviously a little bit embarrassed, so for that reason they're a little bit quiet. But more to the point, nobody sprung up and was like, oh, look at Mason Mount, he's fantastic. Or at least not as many people sprung up and shouted in glorious glee about how great he was, because people just like to bitch. You can see in the post-match reaction on the various football blogs and Chelsea blogs that I read, tend to comment quite a lot more and tends to be a lot quicker and a lot more vocal of a reaction when we lose, when something bad happens. This is the human condition, really. We just like to bitch. And there's obviously a lot more to talk about when we are losing than when we're winning. If we win 6 games in a row, as we did, if we win 6 games in a row, there's not all that much to talk about. Like, oh, this is fantastic, this is lovely, the first few games. And then after that, it becomes kind of, okay, cool, we've heard that, we've heard that, we've heard that. And then when we lose, then every single person, him and his dog, have different views on what could the problem be. Another thing that people don't recognize when they decide to nappy shit is that there's going to be inconsistency of youth. Now, we're going to win some, we're going to lose some, there's going to be a learning curve. That's why Jose Mourinho famously doesn't really enjoy playing youth players a lot often. I think he does possibly get a little bit worse of a rap than he should. He does bring through some youth players, not as often as somebody as large and successful as somebody with such a prominent profile in football has, as does Jose Mourinho. In terms of bringing through young players, he doesn't really do that as much as one would possibly expect of him to do. And that is because when you bring through young players, what you have to do is you have to juggle development with success, and that is not something the nappy shitters understand. Quite a common buzzword in football is philosophy. We're playing the Arsenal way, the West Ham way, the Barcelona way, the Chelsea way, because we don't actually have much of a philosophy of which to speak, and I personally think that's good, and also a reflection of the fact that we have a very high turnover rate when it comes to managers. We have to juggle development and success, and that means sometimes this obsession, this recent obsession with Frank Lampard's team, actually no, this obsession for quite a long time, since Frank Lampard started playing with us, started coaching us, this obsession with passing out from the back, I think that is at some point choosing development over success, and personally I think that's fine. If you want to embed within the team a system where you play out from the back and where you counter-attack from the back, which I personally think is quite good. You retain the ball, you attack, and every single clearance at that point is a counter-attacking opportunity that is most efficient and that is most effective. And persisting with that and getting us used to and comfortable with playing out from the back under any sort of condition, under all circumstances, is a good thing. I do think that after a point, we have not yet reached that point, but after a point where we are then unable to do anything other than playing out from the back, that would be a problem. I don't think that's going to happen. Frank is a smart man and he will know with the high pressing, counter-attacking, counter-pressing way that we play. A long ball every so often would be a good idea. It gains you territory, the ball is in their half of the field, possibly in their final third, and then you press them. And if you win the ball back, then you have a very good goal-scoring chance or opportunity. Then you have very good active possession at that point. And that's a good thing. And I do think that the juggling of development with success is not something that people who nappy shit are talking about that often. There is the youth feel-good factor, which we harped on about and harped on about and harped on about when we were winning. But then when we started to lose, then The fact that we're playing with young players went out of everybody's conception. That Mason Mount at 20 needs to be criticised at every turn for not being as good. I actually heard a podcast the other day saying that Callum Hudson-Odoi was blowing hot and cold this season, and yeah, he is, because he's 18. He's only turning 19 this month, I think, or maybe he turned 19 last month, whatever. He's a young player, he's a teenager, and therefore he's going to be inconsistent by definition. This leads me on to the football alarmism presenting in this obsession with the transfer window. Now, I'm not naive. I do know that you can't have the squad filled out only with academy products. I'm not naive. I'm not that kind of person who just thinks, oh, we should be playing only with Chelsea players and only English players and only players that we bring out from the academy. That isn't what I'm saying. But you can't have the youth feel-good factor and Chelsea's youth revolution and harp on about it over and over again for as long as you want. And then as soon as we go through a rocky period, then you go, we need to sell this player, we need to sell this player, we need to sell this player. This obsession with the transfer window has manifested in us possibly being interested, according to many, many sources, who basically are just rumor mongering and are just going rumor. They're saying, oh, we're interested in buying Jadon Sancho because, yes, he is the hot property right now. He is a very good, very talented young player. Why would we want to disrupt this feel-good factor, this team spirit that we do have? This obsession with the transfer window means that we should take the risk of upsetting the team balance and the team spirit by bringing in this young player. And because he's a young player, he will be inconsistent. He will be going to a different league. Yes, he's from England, but he's been playing for quite a season and a half or so in Germany. That is a fundamental part of his development. He has not developed in England, and therefore he's going to find it possibly difficult to fit in to England, even if his style of play works with the English game, even if he is friends with much of the Chelsea squad, which he is, which it does. This obsession with the transfer window means that we as a fan base are looking to make stupid decisions purely because we just panicked. Oh my God, things aren't going perfectly anymore. We need to sign everyone. Okay, the last thing I'd like to speak about is not something that annoys me. If you've gotten all the way to the end of this episode, the first ever episode, then hopefully that will please you. I want to be discussing Willian. Full-on disclaimer right here, up front, as I do with most things, I do think that Willian is a good player. I've never questioned his abilities with the ball. He's a very good set-piece taker, he's quick, he's tricky. He does slow down the play a bit, but he's a counter-attacking player, and he's actually quite a bit faster than everyone else, most everyone else. So if he didn't slow down the play, it would actually be a little bit weirder than if he did. Yes, he is inconsistent. A, he's a winger, and B, that's just kind of who he is. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. That's just who he is as a player. Not everyone can play with the consistency of Frank Lampard or Eden Hazard or Ian Robben or Tammy Abraham, you know? And Tammy Abraham's only 22, so you're going to know that man is showing quite a lot of consistency. But anyway, I do think that Willian, while a good player, is a very disruptive influence in the dressing room. I take you back to when we won the FA Cup under Antonio Conte, and he posted that emoji thing on Instagram where his emojis covered up Antonio Conte's face and his image. That is unforgivable. That is absolutely unforgivable. You cannot undermine a coach at that point. Sack Conte. If you want to sack Conte, even if Willian knows that you're sacking Conte, that's fine. Sack him. But you don't do that. You should sack Willian too. And the fact that we just let it go, let it continue, means that Willian's behavior is being rewarded. It doesn't matter if he was admonished in private. The fact is he was allowed to continue to play. He's allowed to continue to get quite a lot of money. And now that he's angling for the same 2-year extension that David Luiz got, if he gets that, that's a serious problem. More to the point, he's 31 now, 30, 31. He's going to be going downhill. He can't realistically improve at all, really, at this point. And all he's doing, just by being in the squad, is, at the very best, he's just staying at the same level. His experience is important, and I do feel that we should keep him until the end of the season. But no more than that. We should be looking to phase him out throughout the season. And lots of people have looked at going into the transfer market to find a replacement, and that's fine in the future, but I do think that we do actually have a good replacement for him. Now, I just read this morning that the prognosis is worse than we'd initially thought for Ruben Loftus-Cheek, but I do think that Ruben Loftus-Cheek would actually be quite good in that sort of right attacking midfield berth in a 4-2-3-1. Now, he has played wide under Sarri. I do believe that's in his capabilities. Now I have to see how he comes back from this injury, if he's slowed down significantly or what have you. But he does have the technical skill there. He does have the positional sense to play there. And more to the point, if we manage to fit him into the team, then he adds an extra dimension of physical presence in addition to Tammy Abraham up front. He is quite a large man, and although he's not a huge aerial threat as yet, that can certainly be coached, and Jody and Frank have proven themselves to be good coaches, and he can provide an extra aerial threat in that position. So I think that a good backup for Willian, a good long-term replacement for Willian, would be Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I do think that we should get rid of Willian at the latest in the summer. In fact, also at the earliest. I don't think that we should get rid of him in the middle of the season. Look, his form is good, and as I said, he is a good player. But on a long enough timeline, Willian is going to become a disruptive influence on the dressing room. As soon as he gets dropped, which he will do because he is as good as he is, and I do think he is very, very good. He is inconsistent, and therefore, at some point, assuming this is in fact a meritocracy, he is going to be dropped. And when he gets dropped, is he going to put his head down and work harder to get back into the team? One hopes. The more likely thing, though, is that he's going to sulk and he's going to cause a disruption because that is who he is as a player. Thank you for listening to the first episode of my podcast. I will try and release another one soon.